Good morning, folks. So here it is Monday. Sadly, I'm not with you this morning. I should be back later, but I figured this should be a good way to get us started. So today, for your lab bell, we have basically just three things that we're going to look at. Number one, little bit in the way of new notes. Not much, I promise. Number two, a lab using those new notes. And then number three, if you finish that lab, then you have time to finish up a number of other assignments that you may or may not have done. So I know Friday was a bit of craziness. So don't worry about the quiz from last week. We're going to move on. We'll worry about some review this week as we get closer to the test. Be known, your test is next week. Monday of next week, 1 week from today. So make sure that you're preparing for it. We're going to blow through whatever we can. And you know what? The things that we don't quite get to, we'll do that after break. But I want to make sure that we get something tested before you're all out. So buckle up. Let's get going. So the first thing that we got to do is just a little bit in the way of notes, right? And we started or ended rather last week talking about multiple alleles and different blood types and what you could get there and how then two parents who are not type O could end up with a type O blood child and how that means the importance of making sure that mom and the baby's blood never mixes becomes even higher. Because remember, if two blood types that don't match mix, really, really bad things happen, like, death. So that's where we ended up. Now we're going to start to transition towards actual DNA. See, because all this inheritance stuff was figured out by people over the course of hundreds of years. And then inheritance really started to matter. Once we started to understand it, once we could explain it, then people started to track it. And there's no example of tracking inheritance more than European royal families. They were very, very big with that. And so what happened is they started to create what we call pedigree charts. Pedigree charts show a family tree going back as many generations as they can, and usually tracking a trait from one generation to the next, and so on and so forth. What you see here is an example of a pedigree chart. Squares are boys, circles are girls. If they are white, they have not been shaded in, then they are unaffected by whatever it is we're tracking. If they are shaded in, then they are affected by whatever it is we're tracking. Maybe it's something minor. Maybe we're just looking at traits, blue eyes. Maybe it's something that could be important, but not really a big concern like color blindness. Maybe this is something lethal and very dangerous like hemophilia. So it all depends what you're looking at. But the ones that are shaded in have that condition. The ones who are not shaded in do not have it. So once again, we can see here that this woman and this man had two children. The line together means that they had a child that comes down to the next generation. They had one girl and they had one boy. The boy is affected by that condition. Now we can see that their healthy girl, once again, got married or whatever, had 3 kids, twin daughters, and a son who is also affected. Over here, the affected son married a healthy woman, and they have a son who is unaffected. Notice the genotypes are recorded for each one of these. If they are affected, you know what their letters are. Homozygous recessive. We almost always track recessive diseases, not always, but almost always, because it makes the most sense. And then for all these other individuals, you'll notice they all have something in common. A big A, the dominant allele, capital A, because they all are healthy. None of them are affected by what this disease is. So we know what one of their traits is. And then we can work backwards. So for instance, this son has 2 little a's. Where did those come from? Yeah, I'm actually waiting to see if you guys respond. One from mom, one from dad, of course. So even though mom looks healthy and is unaffected herself, capital A, we know she has the recessive little a in her genotype. And dad, even though he looks healthy with the dominant A, we know he also has to have that recessive little a. Otherwise, the son could not have gotten 2 of them. Now, we know over on the left-hand side here, this son is affected, which of course means that each of his parents had to have what also? 1 little a. They both look healthy. They have a capital. But because he got 2 little a's, we know that they each had to have one. One from mom, one from dad. Now, if we take a look at these 2 twins, or this woman who came in out of nowhere, this has nothing to do with the fact that they're female. The problem is we don't know what that second letter is. Sometimes that will happen. It is rare. Almost all of our examples, we will be able to identify almost everyone. Because, I set it up so that I made sure of it. So if we can't tell what their second allele is, right, for these 3 ladies involved, then how do we know the second allele for this son right here? Well, he got the capital A from who? From mom. Which means, what allele did he have to get from dad? Little a. So we know he's heterozygous, even though he looks healthy. I call this working down and then working back up, or working up and then working down, whichever order you want to go in. As long as you do a double pass, you'll be able to get all of those. I'll show you an example, right? We could take something like this one, and we could literally figure out almost every single thing, aside from the fact that, holy cow, these people had a lot of kids. But, we're looking at, let me see, do I have like the laser pointer? Yeah, there we go. All right. This father looks okay, capital A. This mother, she's affected, little a, right? That's how it always works. There go the lights due to ghosts. They had 1, 2, 3, 4 children. This daughter, little a, she's affected. This son, little a, he's affected. This son, big A, because he's healthy, little a, because he had to get 1 of the recessive alleles from this mom, and that's all she had to give. Sorry, that daughter. This son, big A, little a. Capital A from dad, little a from mom. Then we go down to this generation, right? So we know this guy is little a, because he's affected. Then this woman who married into the family, capital A. And what's her second allele? Because if we look down here, we can see that they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, dear Lord, 11 children. But some of those children, 5 of them are affected, which means each one of them is little a. All of the unaffected children that you see here, they're a capital A, and then they're a little a, because that's all dad had to give them. So we know every single genotype for all of these individuals. And it also tells us what her second letter is, because if this daughter, for example, got a little a from dad, she also got a little a from mom. And then we could continue that on. All right, once again, this man who married in looks healthy, capital A. But they have an affected daughter right here, and then more children down the line, which means little a from mom, the other little a had to come from dad. So he's capital A, little a, heterozygous. And as we look through their healthy children, well, the healthy children all have a capital A, but what's their second allele? Well, mom is affected, little a, so all she could do is donate a little a to every single one of them. Pedigree charts are really interesting because they're like a puzzle. And the puzzle is trying to figure out what are the genotypes of every single person in this family. And that's what you're going to be doing today for your lab. So up front over here, it's labeled as lab number 3 because I made it as a third lab. It's lab 20 for us. No worries. All right, it says you will follow a disease through 3 generations of a family using a tool called a pedigree chart pictured below to track and determine the genetics of each individual in this family tree. This will allow you to identify the inheritance mechanism. Is it dominant or recessive? Is it sex-linked? That one's a little bit tricky, but remember, look for it to show up a lot in boys, less in girls. And it will allow you to then take these methods and apply them to something. We'll be getting into that tomorrow. So here's an example, right? We have a pedigree chart. It gives you the key over here on the right-hand side for what means what. And we could literally go through in each one of these. Let's make sure that my thing is small, and we could say, oh, well, he's capital A. This one is going to be a capital A, little a, because she's a carrier, right? That's what the trait in. She carries the trait, but she doesn't show it. This son is going to be little a, little a. Wow, this is writing really weird. All right, this person came in. We don't know what their second letter is just yet. Maybe we'll be able to fill it out in a moment. All right, this daughter is capital A because she's healthy, but with a little a. This man came in, capital A, don't know yet. Now, let's finish up. This one, capital A, of course, little a, just like all the others. This one, capital A, something. All right, so now we can go to the next generation. And I know some of you may already be looking at it and saying to yourself, wait, but, hold on. We'll get there. All right, so now we come down here. This guy must be capital A, something. This daughter is capital A, little a. Capital A, oh, that's a terrible A. Little a, capital A, something here. Capital A, something, and little a finishes off the third generation. Last generation, we got one affected and one not. Okay. So you see how we've labeled them. Those that are affected, those that are healthy, and those that are carrying. Now we do that second pass. I like to start from the bottom, work my way up, and then for the top, double check down. So if we start at the bottom, this son right here, little a, one of those little a's came from mom, no problem. Where did the other one have to come from? Had to come from dad, which means we know that dad, even though he's healthy looking, must be big A, little a. All right, we can take a look, move up another generation. This is all set. Can we figure out this father's second allele? Not really. It could be either one, so we just leave that line. No problem. Over here, this son right here is big A, little a. Well, he got the capital A from mom. What letter did he get from dad? Had to be a little a. Over here, this daughter, capital A something. We really have no way of knowing. She could have gotten a little a or whatever this parent has. No way for us to know. She could have gotten the dominant A from both. But we do know this father is big A, little a, because his son has 2 little a's, one from mom, one from dad. We come up here, and the last one we can double check is looking right here. Right, dad is capital A, looks healthy. This son, though, got one little A from mom. The other one had to come from dad. Right, so we've been able to identify most of them. We still have 4 people in here that we really don't know the second allele, and that's okay. That happens. Hopefully you all understand the idea, because next up will be your turn to try and figure this out. On the next pages, we have a variety of different pedigree charts for you to take a look at and try to remember. There's a link right here also to an Amoeba Sisters video if you forget and you need that reminder at some point. All right, so here is your warm-up. And this has it set up for you to write them down here based on each person's name. I'll tell you right now, I don't care which direction you do it. You can either write it directly up here next to their symbols on the paper, or down here. This tells you use letter capital D and little d to denote the dominant allele for tolerance, that you can eat dairy, and little d for the recessive allele for intolerance. You're lactose intolerant. Use strategies from class, the video on the last page, to figure out everyone's genotype. All right, and then it comes down here and it says, oh, well, what if Julio marries an unrelated woman, gives you her genotype, and they have a child? What is the chance they will be lactose tolerant? What is the probability the kid will be lactose intolerant? I'll let you guys figure that out. On to the second one. This one is a little bit more advanced. Now we're treating and following albinoism. So, as you guys go, same things. You'll notice this one is designed for you to write directly on here. I did not include something for all the different ones, but try to puzzle this out. In this scenario, you should be able to identify the genotype of every single person except generation 3, numbers 3 and 4. These are the only 2 that you are not going to be able to get every letter for. Every single other person on here, you can figure it out. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the lab. Once you're done, it starts doing, okay, a couple of questions, maybe a couple of crosses. Pretty straightforward, but it's all using these pedigree charts. Where'd my mouse go? There it is. Oh, God, how do I stop? Stop present. There we go. Ha-ha! Success. All right. So hopefully this helps. When you finish this up, remember, oh, I do need to present one more time. We do have a little bit more, and the little bit more is make sure you go back. Here are all the things that we've worked on in the last week or two. We're coming up on break, and right after break is the second half of this marking period. This marking period ends this week, Friday. Sorry, not the marking period, the 5-week. 5-week ends this Friday. So try to make sure that you've got these things in, that you have them accounted for. The inheritance lab, that's today. The dragon genetics lab, we did at the end of last week. The ugly baby lab, we did the beginning of the week. The monster genetics, the beginning of the unit. Monster genetics lab was the beginning of last week. The Mendelian genetics lab is the worksheets with the birds on it. And once again, as always, all these labs are lined right up underneath my big desk here. So if you're missing one, feel free to come up, grab it. Let me know what I can help with. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope this works great. I hope that today sees you well and without any of the complications that Friday brought, right? All right. Have a great day. I will be back tomorrow, and good luck.